Let me share. Okay, so yeah, like I mentioned, we're gonna be in the designer today and on Friday, right? So hopefully nobody gets left behind. I don't think so. Just a couple, I guess, items here before we even get started. So I shared with Jose, right? The plan is today and Friday to give you 2 hours and 2 hours. But 2 hours is 4 hours total is not enough, right? For for everything in STARLIMS, all these applications, understanding them. Really, we're getting like a very small taste of this, right? And I wish we can do like another week-long configuration training like we did with the app. However, right now we just cannot, right? We had too many projects, too many things going on. So there's going to be this introduction today and Friday, and then your best source for like self-training is the designer itself, right? So we have, you know, each of you partition into the different designers, right? So I think for some of the team going in here, it's much easier. The other ones have to go into the VM and all that. But bottom line, you have access to the designer. And once you have access to the designer, that this is really the best training, right? Because it has everything you can think of in STARLIMS is here, and it's available, and you can read it. You can see how things are done. What I like to do, even after many years of this, is look at certain applications and then just see what they're doing. And when I'm creating mine, if I like the way an app is doing something, then I recreate it, right? So in order to do that, you have to find the application, and there's a little cheat sheet here. So let's say you open up with the designer open, you open up an application material types. It's going to tell you the path right here in the URL. Okay, so then you can go into the designer and just search. This is pretty straightforward, material types to material types, but some of them are not. Okay, so this is just a little helper here, and then you can see here material types. You can expand the forms, and then here's the main form. Okay, so here you have the app, and then here you have the design of the app, right? So add, delete, print, material type description. Okay, and then like I mentioned, right? So you can do all sorts of things here. You can see everything that's being done on this app and all the components of the app, right? So you guys got a little brief introduction with David, so I'm gonna revisit some of it, but the idea is forms. You can ignore phone stuff for now and tablet stuff. We're not touching that, but you have the HTML forms. There's also XFD forms if we have the license for it. And we can talk about XFD. We are going to talk about XFD and HTML in the PowerPoint. But basically, you have the forms, either HTML or XFD. And then you have server scripts. So for example, the add button, that calls a server script. Okay. So material types it's a form, another form. It opens up a form. Let's see. Okay, so this goes into this form. And then here, I'm expecting the server script to be called. Okay, so somewhere in here, blah, 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 blah. Here's the call server, add mat types. Okay, so that's this server script. So we traced it, but sometimes you can just look at the application and then read the scripts, and you can say, okay, with pretty good confidence, this is what's adding material types in the system when you click add. Okay, so you can look at that. You can see that you're expected to send parameters. You have your parameters, and then you have your SQL to insert into the tables. Okay, then you have a few more server scripts that are doing whatever they're doing. Client scripts, this one doesn't have, but like let's say there's reusable code here for like the printing, and there's a client script in this category that you want to use, like audit is a good one. Okay, a lot of it is either referenced or is added here as another client script. And we'll get into client scripts and forms, right? But I'm just giving you like a really high level overview of these folders. So this one, again, not so important, right? But it's when code gets reused and you want to add it to your form, you have this ability here to do client scripts. Data sources are what we have for these controls, right? So we have a single control here, which is a data grid. So I expect this control to have a data source. Okay, so here's the data source. And guess what? It's called get material types. So that's the one data source. So we have these two additional ones that are probably embedded in the data grid itself for these columns. You know, who knows, right? We would have to figure that out and trace the code to see who's calling this. But at a high level, we have the form. We have these buttons on the form. This add is the add. This delete is a delete mat type. Those are the service scripts responsible for these two things. And then the data grid itself has a data source that loads the data. So this is a very typical application in STARLIMS. It's kind of like a Lego, right? So this is like a base of a Lego. You start with these static tables. It allows you to build like master data, right, type of thing. So usually it follows this what's the word I'm looking for? This structure, a grid, an add, a delete. You can edit it, right? So this grid is most likely editable. So you can change here certain things. Okay, so at the very least, every application should provide that, right? Add, delete, edit, and view. Okay, so that's mapped, at least in this one, pretty easily, right? To a form, two server scripts, and a data source. Okay, and where I was getting with all of this is, you know, we have the tool, we have the designer, we have everything you could ever want for to do some self-learning, right? Because like I mentioned, we cannot, right now we're gonna teach you a little bit, but there's just so much, right? So hopefully we can use the designer to do a lot of what we need to, right? So again, there's more categories down here for training, which we're gonna talk about in a second. And you know, there's some here that specifically we're gonna touch, but there's a lot more that you guys can do on your own. And then if you have any questions, you know, you have a team of experienced people that you can reach out to. So that is one thing. So the designer itself as a tool. Then another thing I shared with Jose is this help manual. So once you have the designer open, there's a lot of information here. It's like overload. And it's a lot of good information. So let me show you. I like to open it in Chrome. By default, as you saw, it opens up in IE. So again, you know, and it's pretty nice, right? Because you can click and search, and you have all this information if you want to become like a STARLIMS guru to go through. But really, you know, developer references is a good one. So for example, and then technical articles. We're gonna touch this, for example, in the PowerPoint. But if you want to go back and do some more, right? You have this whole section here that actually gets into more details than the PowerPoint will, right? So that's just an example, but you have plenty of other things here. Okay. STARLIMS Designer itself is here. And this is a good one, right? Because this, everything condensed in these 2 hours of PowerPoint is here and more, right? With more details. So it's, you know, I shared this with Jose. I wanted you guys also to kind of, you know, have this information, do some self-training, review all of this, or as much as you can, right? As much time as you can give to this, and then come to me with questions. But first, let's get through today and Friday, right? Like, let's don't get like overwhelmed, like, oh my God, this is all this information. What's this guy talking about? So we're gonna give you like the introduction, but it's not enough, is my point. So I'm pointing you to a few resources, mainly this, it's like the actual system, and then the help manual. Okay, so with that being said, I think we can finally get started. So any questions on help manual or designer itself before we even begin? I know you guys saw it, a little bit of it. Any questions on this simple app here? Forms, server scripts, data sources, are those concepts like okay from the stuff with David, or is it new? Anybody? It needs to be interactive. I don't I don't want to just sit and talk for 2 hours.
Yeah, I think David touched on all of those. This
Yeah.
was a little more in depth than what David got into. So
Okay. Good to know.
I think we're all set up going into this.
Yeah, exactly. Like it again, the idea was this would have been like the application training where you sat with me or with somebody for a whole day and you kind of build your way into some of this stuff. But you know, we had to shift a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna get into the PowerPoint, right? But thank you, Jordan, right? I'm glad that I'm not just, you know, it's not completely new, right? You guys should have seen a little bit of it. All right. So yeah, just, you know, overall objectives. I mentioned a little bit more of the objectives, right, in my intro. It's 2 hours today and 2 hours Friday. It's not enough. So some self-train after these sessions are going to be needed, right? And questions and things like that, and playing around in the designer, right? So we cannot break anything, and if we do, we can restore it, right? So don't be afraid to go in. Just be careful, right? Don't delete don't delete like something that's there. But if you create something new and you can delete it, you can move things around. Hopefully we had time. I'll go into some of those things. But the best way to learn is to actually practice it, right? And we're gonna have concepts here. They're pretty simple, like relative layouts. It's basically how the controls get aligned on the screen, but it takes some practice to get used to, right? Because you're gonna see like a one slide and it's gonna present all the options, but then until you play around with it and see how it behaves and the controls, you know, because sometimes we'll see when I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll see it. All right, so the course overview is this. We're gonna have forms in HTML. I've mentioned XFD versus HTML. We'll look at like how some code was in XFD, some was in HTML. Actually, for that, I'm gonna give myself the XFD license as well. Okay, we only have 2 of those. So, and no clients moving forward and STARLIMS are using the new one here. So it's not, there's no point in training on the old XFD, but again, there are some maybe legacy clients. So it's good that you guys see that. So I wonder if I have to log out. By the way, there was a question by Jose about the licenses. It's confusing even for me. Just what I told Jose is not to worry about too much about the licenses. These are purchased by the clients and you'll know how many of each they purchased. And the only thing we really need to know with implementation is this application called feature users. So just be aware of this app. This is where you say, okay, from the 4 designer licenses for HTML5, what users, you know, have them. And this system here, it's Jajit, Laura, Maria, and myself, right? So that's the partition. And then for XFD, again, not expecting you guys to look at XFD, so just me. But you know, if you need that's where you go. And then you have something like AA, even more like not as, you know, not as useful, or not, we're not going to look at AA right now, so wouldn't worry too much about it. So yeah, Jose, it's confusing, right? But don't worry too much about it.
Okay.
All right, let me see. So I've just added myself to XFD and I'm reopening up the designer. So I'm expecting HTML and XFD under the forms. Okay. So we can look at material types, which is my favorite application. Okay, there you see XFD and HTML. So this is XFD, boom, and then this is the one. Okay, you can actually run the XFD one, which is the legacy, and this is what STARLIMS used to look like before we went, or they went to HTML5 and JavaScript. So this was the old XFD technology running, it's in the PowerPoint, but a flavor of Microsoft for JavaScript, right? And .NET. So it was heavily based on .NET. You needed to run it in Internet Explorer. That was the only browser that supported this thing. You had a lot of client installs that needed to happen. Right now, it's pretty light. It runs on Chrome. It runs on Edge. The only install you really need is this bridge, and only if you're doing developer stuff. You don't even need the bridge if you're just a user for the most part. There are exceptions. But anyway, so yeah, and the PowerPoint is going to get into this and how this became. You can see the code is very similar, but there are, there's a call server, for example. There are some differences, right? And some key differences, like this right here, I can tell you it will not work in HTML. So if we look at the HTML version, it was under report on click. You see, it's doesn't have the, that's one of the main differences. It doesn't have the typecast. So this is a typecast. It's basically saying that this variable is going to be treated as a string. This is a property of this language, which is not a property over here. This is called typeless. Anyways, I need to get back to the PowerPoint because it's going to go into some of that. Okay, so swap it again. Okay, so XFD versus HTML, the feature users and how they control that. Then we're going to look at a presentation layer. I mentioned this relative layouts. This is important in the new one. We'll look at some form events, what that means. Client scripts is here. The async versus synchronous for calls. We'll talk about what that means. And then some simple controls, right? So yeah, let's see. So I mentioned this already, but let me use the PowerPoint as to re-mention it. So the old XFD was locked to IE. Okay, so IE, as we know, is, Microsoft wants to move away from it, right? So they're kind of discontinuing it, and they're just making it so that you can still run apps, but IE is going away. Microsoft replaced IE with Edge. Okay, so that's the new browser from Microsoft, and then of course we have Chrome, which has been around for a while. So yeah, bottom line, in the old XFD, IE was the only internet browser that was you can use. And then the UI is based on .NET components. Okay, so there's a lot of .NET installation on the client, and a lot of client. Let's say it's heavy on the client. This old XFD. So painful to configure. So required some admin level rights on the machine, and some, depending on which client, right? This was either very easy and straightforward, or kind of complicated with admin rights on a client machine to access STARLIMS, right? Pop-ups needed to be enabled, full trust on the website. So there was a lot of excuse me. There was a lot of painful configuration back then, and it looks like an application, like a Office type of application, right? Or like I don't know. It just had a certain look and feel of the 90s or the early 2000s, right? It wasn't, even though it was web-based, it kind of looked like a desktop application. You can see here a screenshot of it if I can zoom in, right? So little dated was the comment here. So now, obviously this was built, I need to get water, sorry. This was built by STARLIMS, and it didn't change for several years, right? They just kept improving this and making like more business functions inside of it. But the look and feel kind of remained the same with this V10 for several years, until there was a project at STARLIMS to convert everything to HTML, make it run on another browser, make it more modern, right? So this is what we have now. Now you can see though, it wasn't like they started from scratch, right? They just took what was here and did a conversion. And everything, for the most part, is in the same place that you expect. So if you're familiar with this one, here you just get a different look and feel. But that was just because, again, it was many years, many applications. You know, they weren't going to start from scratch. So it was more of a one-to-one conversion. Okay. But now that you're here in this new HTML with new programming language and new controls and things like that, doesn't have to look like this anymore, right? There's some newer apps that are being built in STARLIMS that have a completely different look and feel. But since this was a conversion, you know, they kind of kept it one-to-one. So URL is now starthtml.limbs. This is the extension that you go in when you're in HTML. So things for the most part looks cleaner, right, and simplified. So yeah, this is what I'm saying here. The layout remains the same as XFD because it was a conversion. It wasn't a brand new app that was written. It was just existing being converted. And then there's the console and the dashboard. There were some enhancements made there. You have breadcrumbs. You can collapse them. You can, you know, do some, let's say, UI, UX that weren't there before on XFD. Apps can be opened in new browser tabs. This is another main change here. Draggable. And then share the same session. Only one license is used. Okay, so we go back to STARLIMS. Basically, you know, this is the new dashboard. You know, it has these little UX where you can just remove things. The old one, you couldn't do that. You always kind of had that left-hand side and right-hand side. What else? You can, you know, pin it so that it stays. You can open up in tabs and have multiple tabs here. Okay, none of this was possible with the old one. All right, so you can open up a bunch of these at once. Okay, and be working on several different things like we're used to, right, when we browse websites and things. So yeah, let's go back to the PowerPoint. That's what we're saying here with the new HTML. Okay, so the breadcrumbs, the color theme, the fonts, the grids change, the buttons follow a material design, right? So there was a lot of UX that went into this from STARLIMS point of view. They wanted to look like more like a website or more like an app that we're used to on our phones, right? So the buttons are real big, and like when you click on it, they become like, you know, there's an event and there's a visual cue that you clicked on it. So again, here is just, you know, it's been modernized is the word. Okay, so then inside the designer, you have currently there's both of them, right? So the whole system is there represented twice, XFD and HTML. But again, we're mostly focusing on HTML. XFD is just there as legacy. They are there, but you do need a license for it, like I showed. And if not, you don't see them. Okay, and then they are separate, right? So the form here, if you modify it, does not change, obviously, the HTML form. It's a copy. Okay, however, what didn't change was the server scripts and the data sources. That remain exactly the same. So really the upgrade to this new platform was on the presentation. Everything else stayed STARLIMS, right? So if you're coming in from an old STARLIMS and you know STARLIMS back in the days, what you just need to catch up on now on this new system is just the forms, the presentation. Everything else would would remain the same. But for you guys, it doesn't matter because it's all new, right? So you're starting from scratch here. So, but for an old like a person that was used to STARLIMS way back in the days, you know, they're familiar with server scripts and data sources. None of that changed, which is good. Okay, so not all the controls, I believe, made it. Basically, one is missing from what I can tell. Or maybe that's just because this one starts up here. I don't know. But I do remember there were some limitations, okay? It has it here. There are two controls that were removed, the gauge and the charts. Okay, so these controls relied heavily on .NET. And when you move it over to HTML and JavaScript, there were certain things that they just could not convert easily. So these two controls do not exist anymore. They're kind of only in the XFD. However, and that's the gauge control here and the chart control. So this one. This is the XFD one, and this is the HTML. But everything else, as you can see, everything you had before, you have now. Okay, so the buttons, button bar, checkbox, so on. And then you got new ones, by the way, too. So split container is new, split container H and V. These are two new ones. And then everything else is the same. Just because these two didn't make it over, there is something we can do, and we'll get into that. But yeah, that's a difference between the two controls. Yeah, so back then in the XFD days, it was really doing anchoring and panels. Let me go to the form. So in order to get, like, for example, this is XFD. In order for this grid here to go and stretch down when you run it, right? You see the grid is all the way here. And if I keep stretching it, it goes with the form, right? And then again, if I move it up, and then you get a scroll bar. In order to to have this, because again, you have different screen resolutions, you know, whether it's maximized, right? You see it kind of expands. The same with this line here, believe it or not, this is just another control. It's called the line. And if you do this and the line doesn't move and it stays, it's just kind of visually, it's not nice. The same, for example, could happen here. This one I cannot move, but let's say this pop-ups happen and you start dragging it here, then your add and cancel should move accordingly, right? So for all of this, back in the days, it was very different than it is now. Back then it was the layouts and really anchoring and docking. These two were the main things. However, now it's a little different. Again, the behavior is the same. Not this one, sorry. Or should be the same, right? If they did a good job here, let's see. So yeah, you can see if I do this, similar, right? The grid moves, there's your scroll bar. There is no line across the top, that was removed. And then when you hit add, again, kind of sloppy here. It doesn't go to bottom right the way I would expect it to. So, you know, little changes, but at least it moves. And you see, this is some of the new HTML, right? These are some of the challenges. You see the cancel just kind of got wiped. Again, you can fix all of that in the form itself. But for this one, you know, it was good enough, I guess, right? So you're not expected, I guess, to be moving these things around too much. But anyways, that's the type of thing that could happen in the new HTML. So for this is it, right? So even though it has anchoring set, it's really not recommended. What's more recommended is relative layouts down here. Okay, so the same way we used to anchor, you know, you would do now relative layouts. Okay, so there's a mapping between anchoring back in the days, which used to do it like this, where it's basically saying the left, the right, the top, the bottom, right, needs to be anchored so that when you move, it stretches accordingly. You can actually just get rid of all that and then use these layouts, which we're going to look at in a second. Okay, so that's what it's stating here, right? So back then, there were splitter controls in XFD, and then they were replaced with an H and a V in HTML. So basically what this is saying is, let me see if I can show you an example of a splitter. I have to go to a more advanced application. Let me see. Test. Where's Test Manager at? maybe method manager. Because this one doesn't have any splitters. But the idea behind the splitter is it's actually a pain point for a lot of our customers. So let me show you. Yeah, these are splitters. Okay, so you can see, I would need to check this out, but you can see, oops. Let me run this. Some of them are really hard to grab, and we get a lot of, or STARLIMS gets a lot of, complaints from the customer. So this is a splitter. You can see you have to put the mouse, and then I think we've all been in there in the application. We've seen this and come across it, and we find it painful as well. So things changed here, right, from the HTML. So if we look at the XFD, the way that design was. Okay, so you only had one option for a splitter. Okay, so somewhere in here, there was a splitter. There's the splitter. All right, and the control was just called splitter. Now in the HTML version of method manager, which is all messed up, I'm gonna have to reopen it. You have two options really. So you have split container V, okay, so vertical, but you also have a split container horizontal. And that includes now the splitter itself and then two panels, either laid out horizontally or vertically like this, or horizontally up and down. Okay, those controls are here. Those are the two new ones that I've mentioned. Okay, so bottom line, I guess here, just to move on from this topic, is the way in XFD you would keep the controls together and segregated in the real estate of the screen changed significantly in this new version. They've introduced additional panels and controls here with splitters, and then relative layouts. That's the big thing. So relative layouts on the panels themselves, and no longer doing the anchoring for the most part. You'll still see the anchoring, but you shouldn't be doing anchoring. You should be doing relative layouts. Anchoring was a thing of XFD, and it doesn't work as expected in this new version. Okay, so here, XFD, you had three controls. In order to accomplish this, you would need a panel, then a splitter, and then another panel. And now in the HTML, you just need one control, which is this split container H. And that includes both of those. So they took, this is a very common pattern in STARLIMS application, right? You have a top panel, something to divide it, and then a bottom panel. So you can imagine creating forms and things. It would take a lot of time to redo the same pattern. So now it's just in a single control, and it saves time. Okay, moving on. So another key thing here is, again, for consistent and look and feel, right? That was a big thing in this new version. So the look and feel of the apps needed to be kind of consistent. So there are properties now that allow you to get this uniform look and feel, right? So for example, user details. Doesn't matter if somebody spells it, in caps and or in uppercase, lowercase, camel case, whatever, right? So now if you put it into the property, it has a nicer font, like a gray font. It's a little bigger, and it's all caps. Okay, so back then there was a lot of one programmer would do it one way, a different one would do it a different way, and you can lead into various different consistency issues. Now if people start using the properties the way they were intended, you get a uniform look and feel. What it's saying here though, it's not what you see is what you get, right? That's what this stands for. What this means is we don't see user details in the design. You have to actually run the form to see it. Okay, so that was a different change here as well. You wouldn't do anything like that in for the most part in the XFD. In the XFD, whatever you saw was pretty much what you got. Here in HTML, if you don't have the right properties, the right layouts, the first name could end up in the bottom, and you're just like, why? It doesn't make sense. When I look at it in the designer, first name is all the way up here. Why does it move to the bottom? Well, because you messed up the relative layouts. And things like these properties, you don't even see them until you hit play. Okay, so we'll see some of that when we get into the exercises. I'm just gonna keep moving. This slide here is about the bridge. So we all have the bridge now installed, hopefully. It's needed for the designer, and it's also needed to run like an old XFD application. So like, let's say you have a client, right, that wants to use some of the XFD forms and it's not converted. One option is to just run that form in a bridge. Another thing that may come up is, well, these two, go back to these two controls, you want to use them, they're not available. Well, you can create a form in XFD and then put that form into the bridge. And that allows you to run all the old legacy STARLIMS application from within the browser, within the new HTML. So an easy example of that is the following. I think method manager would be a good one that I know. The metadata, our famous metadata templates. Let's go there. So when the conversion happened, again, everything for the most part was converted. There was probably like 95%, I would say. The remaining 5%, like this app here, did not get converted because again, there was a, by the way, here's a splitter. So many splitters, right? So you have a horizontal splitter splitting up this top part and this bottom part. And then you have another vertical splitter here, splitting this one and this one. I think I got those wrong, right? Vertical V and then horizontal, yeah. So let me show you here. So this layout, if I click here, you see it kind of thinks and then nothing's happening. It takes long, and then this opens and right away it looks different, right? Like doesn't look like this white and these icons and things. So this is a bridge form because this did not get converted. They kept this as it was, which is the old XFD. And when you click this button, there's code on this form that opens it up in a bridge. And you say, Ronell, that's interesting. How will we know that or look at that? Or, well, you can go to what I told you earlier. You can open up metadata templates. So this is the name. Then you go to the designer. You look for that application. If copy paste works, by the way, it doesn't, I think. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And then you look for templates is the main form and in HTML, right? So you look here, templates. And now I want to see what really happens when I click that button, right? Because it's very different. So I click on that button and I'm interested in what happens when I click on it. So what happens when I click on it, you see bridge that open form, and then it goes into this. So I can go in here and I can navigate to that. Cannot find it, but that's okay. So I need to look for it manually, right? So generic metadata, I'm in the category. By the way, this is category and then form. So layout, editor, host. Most likely it's, there it is. Okay. So this just looks like an empty form, but if I look in here, okay, it's doing some, some additional things in here that you can keep digging, right? Until you get to where you need to go. So this function here doesn't exist. Okay, so this is inside of a client script. So this is the first look at a client script, but I'm not going to keep going down the spider web. We're going to stop here. So in order to open this up in order to open up that in order to click that button and open up that form, this is really what's needed. So some type of this syntax here, bridge, open form, and then you give it an XFD form. That's kind of like your host. And then this form here is responsible for doing whatever it needs to, right? So if we look in here, most likely, we're looking at this function. just trying to find this function. There's the function. Okay, and then eventually here somewhere it's gonna open up that form. Okay, so this is getting really complex. So I'm gonna just stop here, but somewhere in here it should be opening up the, we can go the other way. So we can go in the XFD, what happens when you click on templates? Most likely it's running the same code, right? So, or when you click on layout, sorry. Yeah, you see, it's exactly the same thing. So this code already existed. And really all you need to do is kind of wrap it and call it from from here. Okay, so too advanced, right? Let's move on from that. But I don't even know how we got into that. I tend to do that. I think, oh, the bridge. Yeah, so I wanted to show you an example of what's happening when you click on a bridge. I so happen to pick a very complex example, but that's okay. Now we get into JavaScript versus JScript.net. So JScript.net was the old one. This is the new one. Okay, so this slide here is talking about, I've mentioned this already. This was a Microsoft implementation. So it was really a scripting engine for .NET, hence the .NET installations and things like that. Really wasn't meant for web pages. Okay, so the new one is, right? So this new standard JavaScript is meant to be on a browser. It's cross-compatible, so you can open it in Mozilla and Edge and all these browsers, except Internet Explorer, I think, which is kind of funny. And then needs to adhere to the ES standards. Okay, so this is more an established language. It's still, very heavily used. This one, not so much. Whoops. And then I mentioned, right, so STARLIMS did a conversion from this XFD to HTML. They built an internal tool that would convert the forms and take care of changing the languages, right? And remember we started with the example, we looked at the two forms and one of them had like string, and I called out that you cannot do that in the new one. So this conversion tool that they built automatically replaced all of that. And for the most part, it gave you like a good 80% of the form. So what I mean by that is, if you take, I can just do an example here maybe. What is this test? Let me create a new one. So if you take an existing XFD, right, and you add some buttons, you add some grids, okay, you do the anchoring, you do all that. Add, delete. Okay, now obviously this doesn't exist in the HTML. And obviously this would be a lot more complex. It'll have code for all of these, right? So let me just add maybe here, search. And then alert, delete. Okay, so if I run this, it's, that's all it's doing. Okay, so, and this is how the new HTML was created, right? So they would come in form by form. You can actually do an entire category, I believe. Yeah. So category by category. This specific one, I'm going to just do this form, and you would say convert to HTML. Okay, and then the system would take this code written in JScript.net, right, meant for like Microsoft's implementation and all that, and convert it to the new HTML, and you can run it on Chrome, right? So let's see how that conversion looked like. But it was great, right? Because it simplified having to recreate all of this. The conversion did it for you. I think it complained that I haven't checked that. Let me just check in. Try it again. So, but it got you, like I said, 85% there. the remaining percentage, it introduced a lot of issues with the relative layouts. You have to go back in manually, obviously test the form, make sure things are still working. Because server scripts data sources were the same, only the presentation was changing. Your testing and your changes were limited to the form, but still, you can imagine an application as big as STARLIMS, all these things had to go through that conversion process and had to go through validation. But guess what? This is the new form. Okay. There's the same code. Nothing had to be changed here. And I can run it. And now it's going to run in Chrome as a HTML5 and JavaScript application. And then there's the two buttons, right? And then that's what the alert looks like. So again, very nice, right? With this conversion. And everything went through this process. That's why we have one-to-one here. So any questions on this conversion or XFD versus HTML? I know it's, you know.
Ronald?
Yeah.
I have a question. And when you talk about this .NET, it is like a desktop application, or what does it mean? Does it mean? I don't know. I'm not very clear.
So say the question again. When I talk about what?
This .NET.
.NET. So that's Microsoft's .NET framework. It's like a framework, right? That allows what we see here, right? These buttons and this grid to be rendered. Okay, so it was really more meant for the old technology, right? The XFD. You needed to install .NET on the client, on the server, and it's just a Microsoft. Yeah, I don't know what the best way to. Let me just Google it. Microsoft.NET framework. Yeah, it's a framework, right? Developed by Microsoft, runs primarily on Windows. So yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not answering your question, Maria, but it's just it was Microsoft's framework for programming, right? So you have, many different versions of it, right? And then each of these versions, you had, if you go into the documentation for them, where was it? .NET. You can see a lot of the implementation and the code, right? For the controls and things like that. Okay, but this is old, right? So we should focus on the newer ones, which is JavaScript and HTML in the browser, right? So when I run this, if I hit F12, you can see that this here is just running a website, right? So there's my .js, and then here we have, we have the application itself, right? And there's my source code. So for example, I could step through this. Okay, none of this was possible back then because again, it was using .NET controls and we didn't have, it wasn't running on a standard browser. It was running on IE with a bunch of .NET stuff happening and XMLs and things like that being passed around. So this one, I've just stopped it here so I can see and step through it, right? So I can step over, there's my alert, and then so on and so forth. So this is more like how websites are written, right? Modern websites. This is more in line with that. Okay, so yeah, so .NET, I wouldn't worry too much
Get
about
it. Thank you, Ronald.
Okay, any other questions on XFD versus JavaScript, the conversions? We're gonna see more slides, so let's keep going. So JavaScript is typeless, meaning I kind of already went over that, right? So you don't have to put a like string, date, array in front of the variables to make it to cast. you just type in the variable, and then whatever you put into that variable is what it is. So it's a typeless. This can introduce some issues, right? If you're not careful with your naming and things like that. This one is more strict. So for example, if V1, if you try to put a, I don't know, an array in there, it won't let you, it won't compile. And this one, you can put whatever you want. So a little bit more strict over here in the old one. XFD constructs must be refactored to remove the type tokens from variables and also the casting. Yeah, the converter was doing all of this automatically. So I could have shown that in my example by putting some variables here of type string, you know, something like this, and then converted it, and then we could have seen the thing, the converter took that away because we don't need it, but that's okay. You have this slide here. This is what it would have done, right? So this function that had A, B, C, where A was an integer, B was a string, C was a date, and it was returning an integer. That's how you read this function. And then you have all this declaration of variables here, where V1 is a string, V2 is a date, blah, blah, blah. And the old way, this is what that would look like. By the way, a button as well. So you can see the button OK, colon button. So you're making it a button. And then equals a button. So this is you know, like the constructor for button, right? So all of this just gets replaced with button OK, and you just find the button OK ID in the form. So it's much easier. You don't have to worry about all of this. Okay, so yeah, let's keep going because we do want to get to some more exercises. Okay, so var, let, and const. In XFD, everything was a var. So, and then that's why you had typecast, one of the reasons, I guess. In the new one, specifically in this ES6, you can use let and const. Okay, so var is still available. And var is what you see in most of STARLIMS. So if we go back to STARLIMS, if I just open up a random thing here, most likely we're going to see var, right? Var, that's it. But yeah, if you go through most of these, they're all going to just have var. And again, that's because it was a conversion. But moving forward, if you create a new application, you have these options available. So the difference being let is visible only inside the scope where it's defined, while const is a variable that cannot be mutated. Okay, so do we have an example of this? Yes. Okay, let's look through an example. So var versus let. So here, really in this, do we have a better example? Yes, we do. Okay, so in this scenario, they're the same, right? So var and let, they're exactly the same. Let is supposed to be used only within this function, while this var user could potentially be used outside of it. But you can see that there's no differences here. Now, when you do const, this is where things start changing a little bit, right? So here we have a variable called name, and it's instantiated with let. Then you have another variable called year that's instantiated with const. Now you can do name equals John and then name equals Dan and just change it. But if you make something a const, you're basically telling the program, right? Like this should never change, and it's going to remain 2019 for the life of that variable. So if you try to do year equals 2020, not good. Okay, the same thing over here. You can say const, the variable is car, and then this is an object. Okay, so the make is a property, Toyota, and the model is Prius. So this is making a car object. You can say on this const, what's the year? Const car.year, you can give it a new property, 2017. That's okay. But for example, you couldn't say car equals and then make, you know, Nissan or something like that, because car was already assigned, right? So similar to the year. you can, once you assign it, you're kind of, if you make it a const, you can't change it, right? Or you're gonna get an issue. And then over here, what is this saying? So const vowels and array, you can push into that. But again, you cannot say vowels equals something else. Okay, so let and const, honestly, we use var the most. So this is here, it's part of the slides, but I don't, unless you're building an app and for a very specific reason, you want to create it in a way that you have a variable that you don't want anybody to change it, then you would use const. If not, just use let or var interchangeably. They're going to mean the same. Okay, so any questions on this? And we can play around, right? We can do some of that here, maybe in this Ronell test. Let I don't know, s name equal Ronell, and then alert s name, and then var s name 2 equal Jordan, and then s name 2. Okay, so now those two are pretty much the same. Shouldn't, the way I wrote it, it's two alerts, one after the other. So Ronell, Jordan looks exactly the same. I can make over here now, after the alerts, I can change it to s name 2 equals Jajit. Did I spell that right? Jajit, yep. And then alert s name 2. Sorry, Jajit, I saw you going on off mute.
No worries.
So boom. And then, by the way, so I'm making changes, I'm saving, I'm using shortcuts, and I'm quick. So, you know, bear with me. But that's what I'm doing. I'm making these changes. I'm hitting Control S on the keyboard, and I'm going back here and just reloading this thing to see my changes, right? Or you could hit play again. But since I already have it open, I just reload, and now we should get Ronell, we should get Jordan, and then Jajit, right? So no issues there. However, if I put const, I don't know, quantity equals 4, and then alert, you know, quantity is quantity, something like that. Get rid of all this. That should work.
I think you're missing the Y in quantity.
That's okay. I'll just have a misspelling. Where? Oh, here. No, that's not okay. Good catch. I thought it was in here. I'm like, yeah, it's fine, but no, in the variable, I need it. Whoops. So I expect it to give me an error if I try to change that. Okay, its quantity is 4. That's good. But now if I say, I don't know, after that alert, quantity equals 5, and then alert it based on the PowerPoint, this should not be allowed. So I'm actually curious myself because I don't really do this. So this is, I haven't really used const, to be honest. But yeah, let's see what, according to the PowerPoint, bam. All right, so this is a good crash. You get these a lot in STARLIMS. So let's do an F12, and you can see, so I'm hitting F12 on the keyboard, by the way, which brings up DevTools. It's common for websites and things. And I love, this is what I like the most about the new, back then you couldn't do this. You had to read the error and then look at the line number and go back, and you couldn't really step through anything. It was pretty painful. So here I've clicked on where it's telling me there's an issue, and then here's the issue. Type error, assignment to constant variable. So it's pretty clear on what the error is, right? Because I made it a const. Okay, so that's an error. I see that. I'm like, no, what are you doing? You know, can't do this. Let me make it a.
Nell?
Yeah.
And that window?
The Chrome debugger?
Yeah,
This?
that just popped up automatically, or did you?
F12. You have to hit F12 on the keyboard.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So quantity is 4, quantity is 5. It's happy now. Boom. Okay, so good, right? That these are more advanced examples with objects and stuff, but the idea is the same. Okay, this is gonna get more interesting. Oh yeah, I'm so behind. Oh boy. All right, let's see how much we can get done. So blocking calls. Yes, this was very typical back then. So over here is old, this is new. The converter will have to do this, but we don't moving forward. And you have to design your application accordingly. So what's happening here is JavaScript makes it so that you can do non-blocking UI thanks to these patterns, async, await. Needs virtually no refactoring and can be automated. So this is talking about the converter. It automatically converts it. Okay, so basically here is, this is the old one. It had a function, a button. You used to click on the button. The first line that executes is this. And it's a form.show. So it was showing up another form. Okay. So think of like an ad. You click add and then it gives you a pop-up to enter in some data and then you hit save and that closes. The old way, there was nothing special. You would have to wait until this returned for this next line of code to come in. So you get the return from whatever happened here and then do a call server or do an error, whatever. When you convert this, since JavaScript allows for non-blocking UI, you have, in order for it to work like this, you have to put a wait with an async. Okay, and the converter did that automatically. So the way this is read is exactly the same thing, but it needs these keywords. Okay, await in front of the show thing, and now that's forcing the system to wait here until this closes, and then it continues. If you don't have that, and you try to run this, the program, right, is gonna read this line, execute it, move on to the next one, execute it, move on, and your results and stuff are not, it's not good anymore because it just continues. So you have to do a wait. However, there are certain scenarios where we want this stuff to continue. And then when it comes back, put it into a callback. Does it have that here? Maybe. Okay. So for now, let's keep it like this. So the converter, in order to make it work the way it used to, you put async await, it does that for you. And this is another pattern that you see in all of STARLIMS. So I can just pick, let me get out of metadata. Let me go to my favorite app. So this is a very common pattern, right? So click on a button, async await, you wait for this to return, and then it does whatever is below here. Okay, but sometimes, let me see, get data, async. Sometimes, and that would make it so that, oops. So that it's what we read, right? It's gonna do an await, and you're just gonna sit there. And if the user never closes that form, then the program never runs anything else. It just stops. Let me show you this quickly. I think because I'm searching. Yeah, so this is what we just read, right? So limbs that get form, show modal dialog with the wait in front of it. And it's just waiting here. Okay, and then nothing else will happen. And I hit cancel. And now it returns and it's supposed to refresh and do whatever. But sometimes, let's say like whatever you did over here is really complicated and it's taking a long time on the server, and you hit OK and it's like nothing is happening and you're just waiting because you have the wait and you're just waiting and you're waiting. And eventually this thing returns and you get your new record or something refreshes, whatever. In the old way, that was the way. You had no other choice, right? You didn't have this option. You didn't have any other options. But with the new HTML, you can make it so that it doesn't wait and it actually goes and does whatever it needs to and however long it takes. assuming it's actually executing things and not like in a loop or something. That's going to time out. And then you give control back to the user, and then they can actually, it gives it a sense of performance, right? Because you're not stuck there with a little hourglass waiting. So you can still move the cursor, you're still moving. You give a visual cue that something's happening, maybe like a please wait on a specific grid. You know what? Instead of looking at it in the designer, let me show you what I'm talking about. So it gives it a sense of performance and speed that that wasn't there before with the old. So for example, here, there's a complex app, right? So I have data grid, panels, and then controls. If I click advanced, there's the loading, right? So that's a please wait. Then I hit OK. You see, like the cursor is back, and I'm getting this please wait, and now I see some data, and then I'm getting a please wait over here. So the way this was written, it's not waiting for all of this to come back. It's actually loading it in separate sections, because obviously the data here depends on this data. So it doesn't make sense to load this and then load this in parallel. There is a sequential mechanism to it, but you don't have to wait for all of it to show it. Okay, in the old system, this would have looked like you hit OK, and then nothing happens, nothing's happening, nothing's happening, still nothing's happening, still nothing's happening, still nothing's happening, and then boom, everything just at once. At least with this one, you get like little pieces that start loading, and then other things that are waiting, right? But gives a better sense of UI, UX, right, for a user. So you can look at how that's done, right? Go into the designer, but basically what, this didn't work, my search, but basically what's happening is they're not using an await, and then they're adding a callback to this function so that when the function returns, it executes something in that callback. And that's, again, a little bit more advanced. So I'm just gonna move on, right? But for this slide here, this is what's to mimic the old. You just put async and await, and this is the pattern you see 90% of the time. Okay, conversions, we just kind of did that. So I don't know if I want to, during the conversion, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we did that. We get the idea. If there's a client that has an XFD, you can convert it. All right, let's look at these layouts, because this is really important for the new, building new apps and making changes to an app. Let's see how to do that with an example. Okay, my favorite app, close all. All right, customize. By the way, yeah, so this blue code stuff, that means it's STARLIMS. I just did, let me undo. Need to give you some delete customizations. Okay, so you open up Designer and you get all the applications in STARLIMS. And this is the way they come from the factory, right? And notice there's a layer ID here of 200. That means it's the out of the box factory code. And back in the days, if you wanted to change that code, let's say the client asks for something else to be added to this material types, you know, a new column or something, you would have to make a copy, make the changes in that copy, expose that copy in the thing, call the copy like client underscore material types, right? The client name. It was a mess and a lot of overhead. Now they have introduced version layers. So now you just have to go in and say customize. And now you've changed it to 300. So I can make whatever changes I want here. If I want to go back to the factory code, I can, you know, quickly go back to that. And I can delete the customizations. I only have to manage it in one form. I don't have like 2 versions of the form. So it's much easier now than before to make customizations. So you right click, you say customize, and you start adding. Let me just for show, let me mess this up. absolute, or maybe I need to do a new, yeah, let me just do a new one. All right, I'm gonna do this kind of quickly, but so you guys get a, okay, button, button, button. Oops, and then data grid. Okay, and then this is add, this is delete, this is print. And then this, let me just make it load. Get material types. Okay, save, run. All right, without relative layouts, it looks like crap. Everything is kind of how I put it, you know, things don't expand. The buttons are, I can try to move them up and make them all line up. But if I start changing things around, it quickly, you lose complete control on this thing, right? So you have to use relative layouts, right? So the slides are going to get into it, but the basic idea is to start with the form and map out in the form how these controls need to look. So for example, if you don't use a panel, it's not good either. So let me do this. And this should be okay if I run it. Should still look good. Okay, so pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of space here. I can try to move it up, but again, you don't want to be like trying to pixel by pixel, right? That's not the point. So what you do is you start with the form and then you go to the relative layout of the form. And then you have all these properties here. Okay, begin, middle, end, stretch, layout, absolute, H box, and V box. Everything back then, by the way, in XFD was absolute. There wasn't this concept. So let's make it a vertical box. Okay. And let's make it stretch. And let's see what that does. So this is not, it's going to look funky, but you can start seeing some of the changes being applied. Okay, so add, delete, then a grid, and then print all the way down here. And you tell me, or I tell you why, if my print is here, why is it moving? Like if I had the print down here, right? So it matters in the order of the controls, and it's kind of complicated, to be honest, the way this works. So that's why I said practice of these patterns is key, right? So what we typically do is for the buttons, we put them in a panel. That way you're dealing with less controls, okay? And hopefully things start aligning, right? So now what I suspect is going to happen maybe is the grid at the top and then the panels at the bottom. Let's see. Yeah, you see, so that's, I mean, it's like, I have it here. Why does it, why does it do this? It deals with the way the controls, the order that the controls get added to the form. So if you want to push this guy to the top, I always get this confused, either bring to front or send to back. I want to say, let me try bring to front, but I think it's the other one. And let me see. I think it's, yeah, send to back usually. Yeah, you see, so it's kind of, you have to like reverse your logic here and you have to send it to the back. That makes it so that this control is going to appear in front of this one. So if we try to do this again, it should hopefully line up a little better. Yeah, okay, so this is what we want, right? Or kind of what we want. You see the grids doesn't really cover the whole page. So why is that? Let's see, so we can do, you know what, let's go into because I'm playing around, excuse me. I'm playing around without giving you the PowerPoint. But this is what we're going to talk about in the PowerPoint, right? These relative layouts to make this pattern of buttons, grids and things stretching and looking correct, right? So this is all new, and I feel like a lot of people struggle with it because, again, the way it's implemented is kind of strange. Okay, so now that we have that basic little tutorial, we can look at this, right? So 3 layouts, absolute, H box, and V box. So this is the absolute is the old way. I don't recommend absolute. Always H box and V box for most things. So controls, and the reason for this is it goes back to that anchoring and the old, the way things were in the past. So a lot of the converted forms, you'll see absolute and then anchoring. And then a lot of the newer forms, you'll see them with H box and V box. This is not perfect. Things tend to get misaligned, stuff like that. So always do these controls, these layouts. Okay, so the horizontal arranges things from left to right. This arranges things from top to bottom. Relative layouts, the properties is no longer what you see is what you get. We kind of saw that, right? So again, this one is again pointing to this old XFD. You put it on the form, you make it so that it's absolute. And when you run it, you expect things to be the same, okay? But again, not ideal, not recommended. HBox, if you want to start stacking things horizontally, you use an HBox. Okay, so now the problem is if you want this purple to come first, you have to send this purple to back. Okay, which is what I did over here. For these two controls, you send it to back. So for example, let's do a relative layout here of horizontal. And let's see what happens to the controls. This is going to make it so that you have layouts on the form, but then also on that panel bar, we'll also have layouts. You see, delete goes first, print goes next, add, like it's all out of order. So now you have to make it go back in order. So you have to see, okay, I want to add first. So I'm going to push this to back. And then I'm going to reload. So now the add should go to the top. And that's it. You don't have to touch the other two because I'll be happy with that, right? So yeah, just careful with the layouts because what you see is not what you get, but it's what we should be using. So use them. Stretch is another property. So that we're talking now, the second property here is to stretch. So notice this salmon color here, whatever this is. If you before, it wouldn't go to the end. But now with stretch set to true, it does, right? So we can go back to ours and we can say, we can stretch here, which we already did, but let's stretch on this panel here. And now what's gonna happen, actually, can somebody tell me what's gonna happen? Or take a guess with this H box and then stretch true on these three controls? I can give you a little.
Is it gonna space those 3 buttons across the entire page?
Close, but not all 3. Gonna do it for one of them.
Okay.
So which one is so let me show you the form again. So I'm expecting this, but then if you look at the PowerPoint, right? The salmon. So
The last one. Okay.
the last one, right? So when stretch is set, the last control is stretched so that it fills the space. So in our case here is this print. So if we run it, it's going to be that last one, right? Let's run. So I just do this, refresh, which is not what you want because you don't want a button to look like that, but there's the button. And it's actually not going all the way to the end. I have an issue here where like both of them are stopping here. Let me see if I can figure out why. We have maybe stretch on the form itself. pack. Because I have stretch here, and then I have a V box. And yeah, I'm not sure. Let's see. I was expecting it to go like all the way. You see, it kind of tries to, but it stays there. Let me see if on the form itself, it now moves all the way. Yeah, there you go. So now look at this print button. It's huge. Okay, so, but we do want that for the grid, right? So the grid should look like that, but not necessarily the button. Okay, and to show that point, we can raise that button. So yeah, the best thing on this is to just play around with them. Yeah, look there, you can clearly see the whole button is stretched out. And there's no space really between them. So that's another little property that you can play with. You can give it some padding. Refresh here. And this is like second nature for me, right? Like I go in, I do the stretching, the padding. I usually do 3, and then I do a padding on the form itself to kind of give some space between this control and this control. I include maybe like on the grids themselves, I include this text property. You don't see it anywhere, but you see it in design. On this, I don't do the stretch, but I do slightly less padding. What else? Let's see what this is looking like now. So now we're gonna get some extra space and then some text that says materials. Okay, so this is looking more like a typical STARLIMS app, right? Maybe if you want to add like a message here, so please add a material. Again, I use the text property rather than adding a label. This is the old way of doing things. Let me just show you the differences. I try to use the properties, right, of the panels. I use a lot of panels. If you see me ever building a form, it's like I'll probably do a panel for the grid itself too. Okay, then move this up. Because maybe down here you have, it's not a grid, it's a tab control, and you want to, do other things here too. So now I need relative layouts here. So I put stretch, and since it's one control, it doesn't really matter. So I do that. Hit save. So I use a lot of panels. Everything I try to put in panels. Everything is relative layouts. And then if things get misaligned or whatever, I use that push to back to get it to how it, yeah, you see, like this is, well, we're seeing 2 of them. Okay, so it's looking all messed up now. So let me get rid of this. Let's go back. Oh man, we're like out of time. Now you see there, it's getting there, but it's, by adding the text properties, I'm getting, some overlap. So I would either do probably like a bigger padding. Try 15. Yeah, let's see that, what it looks like. I usually don't do like a text on the please add a material. Yeah, it's still kind of, increase the size here. Refresh. So yeah, I usually don't do that text property, at least not on the, there you go. There's like this please add a material thing. That's usually, if you look here, you see like it's never there. This one doesn't have it on the grid the way I do. But I like this little caption here for the grids with the form properties. And then this please add a material is more on when you click add. Let me show that real quick. Instead of putting it as a here, I'll put this text in the panel so that it looks a little cleaner, right? So when you don't do it in the properties, this is what I was mentioning. and you just do it as a label. It doesn't look, it kind of clashes a little bit in the UI. So let me show you that real quick. It's down here. Yeah, it's not too bad actually. I've seen it where the font is like bolded. But again, for consistencies, like I mentioned it at the beginning, right? So it's all uppercase. So, you know, people are gonna get like consistent like UI, right? If not, somebody's gonna write it like this or capitalize the L. So I mentioned that at the beginning. I usually like the text properties, definitely of grids, and then panels. The form, yeah, this would just be the name of the form. Relative layouts everywhere with panels everywhere. I use a lot of panels, and then a lot of split containers, which are just, you know, a control that has panels. It's a little, this one's a little funky to play with, but you know, I would add this in here. I'm clicking on it, and then I'm going to the splitter control itself so that I can move it around. Okay, and then maybe I want, I don't know, another data grid up top. And guess what? Now I need to go in and do relative layouts here, make sure it's stretching, and VBox. And then relative layouts here, stretch, VBox. Okay, so yeah, a lot of panels, everything relative layouts, and try to use form text as much as possible instead of the labels. Let's keep going. Running out of time completely. So padding gives, yeah, we talked about padding. And then here, I'm gonna skip this. You have it as a reference, but the best thing is to just play around, right? Because we can go through the slides and like we can discuss all these different options, but you're gonna forget about it. So if you do what I'm doing, which is adding things and doing layouts and then hitting play and seeing how it affects it, I think you'll get more out of it than these slides. Okay, debugging we looked at. It's you hit F12. It shows you everything there. You can step through it. Okay, so this is neat. And there's a slide here about Sencha. Sencha is basically what STARLIMS is using in the background for their controls. However, we don't get full Sencha visibility. We get like a little toolbox, which is what we have here. If you want to do more advanced stuff, then you can look at Sencha and look at the entire library of things here and start creating all this manually, right? So for example, this example, they've added like a Google street map widget to a form in STARLIMS. Okay, so you can do, this opens up a whole new world of programming. However, STARLIMS for implementation and for limbs, you try to keep it with the toolbox. This is, you know, you should be able to build everything you need with this. If you need to go to Sencha to do some fancy stuff, I mean, it's nice, you know, for like those hotshot developers and want to do like a bunch of different things. But again, it's kind of overkill if you ask me, right? You have everything you need here. The whole app was written with these controls for the most part. So because you have that ability to do that doesn't mean we should. But anyways, you know, it's here, so I mentioned it. So I think there's a link. Yeah, let me just go to it so you guys can get exposure to it, but there's a lot. And yeah, it's like its own thing, right? So for example, getting started. Tutorials, grid, choosing components. Where like Sencha, like kitchen sink is where I usually go to. Components, grids. No, let me see something. Yeah. Yeah, so you can all these things in theory, right, could be added to STARLIMS. But there's a lot here, right? And obviously we don't have the time to get into all of this. So it's nice, it's neat. The whole STARLIMS designer was written with this framework, right? With these controls, but they encapsulate it into this nice little simple toolbox with drag and drop. And you don't have to worry about creating this button in the Sencha world. You just drag the button and then you have the button and the properties. So much easier than doing things in Sencha. Okay, but the slides are here, so we can go through that. Okay, so now it's when we're gonna go into exercises with 7 minutes left. But let's at least, all of us should do a hello world. Or maybe all of us should do this program. And who can stay like a few minutes over? Are you guys okay to stay like, I don't know, give me like another half an hour? Jordan, Jajid, are you good?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then the people in
We're good.
Costa Rica? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's, I included training and we spent, that time. On Friday, we're going to look. On Friday, we're actually leaving, which is kind of crazy. We're leaving the presentation layer and we're moving into the server layer. But you, like I mentioned at the beginning, you can self-train, right, on a lot of these things. I think this was really mostly on relative layouts and controls and real basic introductions, right? But let's do an example to put everything together. Okay, so we're gonna skip, or let's not skip it. We have half an hour. We should be able to do these two. So everybody go to designer. I'm gonna do it here. Again, we're partitioning each other, right, in groups. So Jajid, MJ, and Laura, we're gonna be under this category. Create yourself a category. I'm gonna call mine Ronell. Whoops, that's not what I think. I did this with I did this with Jose as well. Don't do that, sorry. Do a new application. Call it Ronell. And then I can create it for you guys actually. So Jajid, Laura. And then the VM, I do need your help, right? The guys, Jordan and Jose and Violeta on the VM, just do this. I think Jose has one already. I'm missing Laura. No, MJ. Okay, so we all now have our own little apps. Okay, so open up those apps and create yourself a new form. All right, so the way you do that is you say right click, you say open app, and then it's going to bring it over here. And then over here, you expand and you say new form and call it hello world. And let me know when everybody finishes. I can see these here doing it. So let's see, Laura, not yet. Jajid, yeah, Jajid is there. Cool, Jajid, nice. So by the way, look, he has it, it's red. So that means it's checked out to him. Okay, so checked out by him. We have all these options here we need to go through, but one thing at a time. So let's see, Laura, refresh. Okay, Laura, we're missing, and MJ, we're missing. And then Jordan and Jose and team, Violeta, are we
Yeah,
good?
I'm on it.
Yeah, I'm good.
And Ronald, when I share my screen so you can
Yep.
see, because I am a little bit lost.
Okay.
I cannot share the screen.
Did I made everybody a co-host except you. Sorry.
Okay,
There you go.
thank you. Let me see. Okay, I'm here, so
Yeah. So you don't even see the designer. You need to kind of
No.
let me take control.
okay.
I think Jose can help you here. We did this together. Am I? Oh, there we go. Yep. Cool. And then maximize it and then go to designer. By the way, I'm hoping we have this site where you can just go to the URL. You don't have to go into the VM,
Okay.
but I ran out of time. I don't know all the details of IT and how to make that happen, but I did open an issue with Carlos. Okay, so we have here Jose demo, Jose training, and Jordan, where are you? I don't see you here.
Yeah, JD.
Ah, my bad. JD training. Okay, so then Jose demo. This was so we created 2 of them. So I'm gonna
Okay.
create Violeta training. Okay, so let me go back to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So then what does this PowerPoint want us to do? So that's it. Okay, so use the designer, change the properties of the form, add a title, drag and drop, a button, alert, create an event handler, blah, blah, blah. Do we have a picture of this? Yeah, this is what it should look like. I skipped some slides. So hello world, big button says click here. And then on click event. And then here. So I'm gonna leave this. How do we do this? I can I'll pick one of you and then the others can watch. Digi, why don't you go and let's just do this together. I can sort of walk you through it and then you share. That way I'm not the only one sharing my screen here.
Sure. Share
So
my screen.
it's on the PowerPoint, right? But I'm gonna have the PowerPoint open and we're just gonna watch Digi to kind of do this.
Okay.
All right, so the PowerPoint's, yep, sorry.
Sorry.
MJ?
Okay, I'm a little lost with the last step. I have to put in Maria Jose, I don't know, an application.
I created one for you, Maria Jose.
Yeah,
So
I can see it, but I don't see nothing in the.
yeah, so go right click on it and say open application, and then it's gonna move it to your Explorer, the workspace. And then you're gonna look for HTML forms and you're gonna say new
Okay.
form and you're gonna put hello world. And then let's see. So Gigi, yeah, can you show her? Yeah, he has it here. New form and then hello world. This is this is typical, right? This hello world for those programmers.
Okay.
You're okay? Do you want to share? Maybe.
No, ready. Thank you.
You ready? Okay.
Yeah.
So the task, Jajid, is to add a label, add a button, and play around with some of the properties. Okay, so let's find the controls. So bottom left, you have toolbox. Click on that, yep. And then button is first, yep. And do a label as well. Okay, then the label should say hello world. So there you go, without much training. I'm gonna let him figure it out.
Is it this here?
So yeah, that's a good point. We didn't talk about all of this because we skipped those slides, but ID, it needs a unique identifier, okay?
Okay.
And you need it to usually, so what we do as best practice, labels, you start with LBL and then the text. So change that ID, LBL, and then hello world. However, it has to be, so this is giving it a variable name. Yeah, exactly. So it has to be, you can't use spaces, you can't use like numbers and things like that. There's some, perfect. So that's not going to change your text though, right? So we need another property. Yeah, I'm going to let you try to figure it out. You got to look for another property to change the text.
Oh, right here.
Yep. And maybe let's change the color as well.
Color, background color.
Yeah, whichever one. I think they both. Yeah, that's fine. Or you can do the 4-color. Yeah, make it look
Oh, that's like the text color.
wild.
Okay.
Yeah, make it look wild.
It's bright yellow.
So not a lot of colors in STARLIMS. I don't know if you guys noticed. It's very vanilla. But you know, if you're creating an app, I think color can be used, right? It just depends on the requirements. Okay, perfect. So the button, let's do the same 2 properties, right? Those are the main properties that we're teaching right now. So yep.
Do you have a naming convention for these?
Yeah, so BTN for button. Usually it's just like an abbreviation of the control. So
Okay.
perfect. And you can call this click here or something. Yep. Yeah, you can actually don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that. Yeah, erase it so you can just put it white. Yep. If you go down, down, there's a visual style that currently says flat. Why don't you change that to raised? So there's only 2 options, flat and raised. And then the idea being raised is gonna make that button in blue, and it's gonna like call attention to that button as like an action that somebody should be doing. Versus white, it's more like in the background, right? So think of like an add in blue and then a delete in white. That's usually the best, you know, scenarios. Anyways, so raised, so we can see that in blue. So let's save this. Okay, and then you can run it. It's not gonna do anything, but let's run
Ronel?
it. Yep.
Question. And in this case, it's blue because it's by default, but we can change that default for
No,
future.
so the raised, it's part of the,
It's
part of
always
the, yeah, it's part of the way STARLIMS implemented the design. So raised will always be blue. We cannot change it. Okay, so right away, Dajit, right? What are we noticing here? We have to,
You have the cutoff text.
yeah, but in the designer, it looks right?
Yeah.
All right, so just, yeah, welcome to STARLIMS. Play around with it, then save it, and then play it again. You can hit refresh, by the way, on the,
Oh, okay. Instead of
yeah.
opening it multiple
Yeah,
times.
there you go. That looks better.
Cool.
Why don't we do like some relative layouts to the form? So, yep. And then we want a vertical V-box type of layout, right? Do we want that click here to go expand? Probably not, right?
Right.
And then let's just do a little bit of padding so that the hello world text gets separated. And then hit save and see what that looks like. I think your click here might be above your hello world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's push it to back. So hello world. No, the other way.
Oh, the hello world. Okay.
Yeah, that one push send to back, which moves it up. Use your reverse your thinking. And then, yep. Beautiful. All right, click on it. Click. You're not clicking. No, okay. Right, so we don't have anything. So let's go back to the design. Go to the button. And then let's look at the properties. And we need to find a click event. Okay, so by the way, we only have 2 events, yeah? So depending on the controls, you get different events. On key press and on click. So on key press, if you read it, it says code executed when a key is pressed while this control has the focus. For a button, you would never use that, right? So ignore that one, but then definitely you want to, when you click the button, yep, double click there. It's going to take you into the function. Notice the name of the button is, that's why you name it first, so that if you double click, it's going to say button ID or whatever that previous text was, and then you have to go back and change it. So always ID first and then events, right? And then the thing doesn't want you to use an alert because that's ugly. So do a, where was it? Dialogues. I need to find it. Hold on. But yeah, it's type dialogues with a capital D. And as soon as I find it, yeah, dialogues, perfect. Hit period on that. Yeah, okay, so this is IntelliSense. So dialogues is an object that STARLIMS knows about, right? And you have all these methods and properties. So look for scroll, right? Let's see what's in here. All right, so you can do, keep going. You have all these to play with, but yeah, let's just keep going. Message box, you see it? Message box, double click. Now open a parentheses. Okay, now more help from IntelliSense from the designer. So 1 of 5. Scroll through some of those. Okay, if you add a, hold on, go back to number 2, please. So the system.string and a text and then a caption. So if you put 2 parameters, you can give the message box a caption. Okay, keep going, 3 of 5. Then you can add some buttons. Okay, but notice it needs a button there. So keep going. And then you have icons, keep going. And then you have a default button. All right. So normally if I'm developing and I see this type of stuff and I want to see more about the dialogues message box, I would grab that text that he has there. So do no, the actual text on the where the cursor is. Yeah, just
Like this.
copy that. Yeah, all the way to the beginning. All the way, all the way, all the way. Copy it. And then go to I think it's tools at the top. Global find or look for I control shift F on the keyboard. Control, there you go. So it's somewhere in the toolbar, but I know it from shortcuts. Okay, now you can do forms. So just check forms and then find. Okay, and then again, designer is your training, right? So we'll see how this gets used. I'm sure like a ton of forms are going to come up, and then you can just, you know, see how others are using it, see what sort of parameters, see how they build the parameters. So it's overkill for a message box, right? I would just put message box and then whatever, but let's see how fancy they get. Okay, so expand this a little bit, give us some space. So 4,000 results, right? So we can ignore all that XFD metadata. So sort it by application. And then, yeah, let's go. Let's see how analytes. So you see that's, yeah, don't do XFD because it might not work, right? So do HTML. Yes, Jose. And then double click there.
Question, what did he find with Control Shift F? The dialogues that message bots?
Yes.
Okay, without the parentheses, right? Or with it?
Yes. With just the beginning parentheses.
Okay. I'm trying the same and it doesn't appear nothing.
Okay. All right. I mean, let's see. I mean, it should work. Maybe you have it like S, you have the S dot message box. You have it exactly like that. Just double check your spelling and then make sure he picked forms in the search box too.
Okay.
So
It's
if
like-
not, give me a sec. Yeah, right there.
It's like that.
And then he hit forms.
Forms.
Yep.
Okay, I think that that was the
You got it then? Good.
reason. Yeah, let me try again. Click forms.
Okay, so this is a good one that you found here, Ajit. So let's read it a little bit. So the first parameter here, if you remember from the IntelliSense, it was the message and then the caption. And then I forget what these are, but you can see form that resources, and then it opens up a what is this, a bracket, and then it puts, you know, a string, and then it closes that bracket, and then the same thing. So these are actually saved as global resources in forms, and are this is used for translation, right? So STARLIM supports like translations. So we would see, I'm not going to do it now because I do want to go to that other exercise, but this is a good one. It's just not what I want to see right now. So let's find another one, or do this here. Let's see what else we got. Is that
I
the
think because
only-
I searched again and I didn't.
No, you're fine. Oh yeah, we lost the. But yeah,
Yeah,
let's see
because
what
I
else is
clicked
in the.
close.
Yeah, that's okay. Let's see what else is in this form.
In
So
this one? Okay.
yeah, so you can use this button here to find next, and it's gonna find whatever the other version of Dialog's message box. So again, this is even more advanced because it's passing an array from a call server. So keep going. Next here, this
I
one.
think that might be the only two.
The only two that show up. All right, so
Yeah.
let's go back to ours. So that's an idea of like global find, studying it and seeing, but we got a little too involved, right? So just put put string, right? Double quote and hello world, or no, yeah, hello world.
Gotcha.
And then, yep, let's do one more, comma. And then this is a caption. I want to see how the caption shows up. So this is a caption, yep. And then close that, semicolon it at the end. Okay, so now when we click on that, we should get a nice little message box. Unable to save. Why is that? Try it again, Digit. Save. Okay, interesting. Trying to see. Yeah, just close it. See if it lets you close and reopen it. So like right click here and say close. And then don't save, I guess. We can just rewrite that code real quick and then open it back up. Oh wow, we're like completely, all right, so close everything out.
Okay.
I don't know what happened here. Close all. I hope we don't lose all of our little form. Save it, see if it lets you. Ah, what happened? All right, just close it.
Okay.
Double click on it to open it. Oh man, can we check maybe your session or something on STARLIMS? Go back to, yeah, go back to, that was why. Yeah, so welcome to STARLIMS. All right, let's go back in there. I think we lost all of that stuff. All right, no, the
maybe
form's
not.
still there. Yeah, maybe not. The event is lost. Okay, let's just do it quickly. So we
Okay.
can move on to the next. So yeah, on click. And then dialogues, that message box, and then just put hello world, and this is the caption.
Oops.
Careful with the, go back, delete all of that and go back to the dot. Message, start typing M, message, and then hit tab on the keyboard.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, because it's case sensitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And then hello world. And this is a caption. I don't even know how the caption looks like. I guess it's it's going to be on the banner of the message box. Okay.
There we
And
go.
run. You should be able to reload your form. Yep. Click it. There you go.
Cool.
And then OK is the only button available. Remember, some of the parameters were for the buttons. So you can default some buttons in there instead of OK, like cancel or yes, no, right?
Right.
So you can ask questions to the user like, are you sure you want to delete? That could be a question. And then yes, no could be the parameters and so for that, you would go back into global find and then look for a dialog message box that has a delete, or you would look at a delete button and see how that was implemented, right? So those are ways to learn this thing. Okay. I was going to take half an hour, so we have 15 minutes. I do want to go to the next exercise. Is everybody good with this hello world? So we can move on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody not get it?
In my case, my computer froze a little bit, but like, it says that it cannot search. You couldn't find the search.
That happens too a lot, Jose. With it times out on the search. So forget about the search for now.
But all good. I managed to understand, and we did it yesterday. So
yeah, exactly. So let's do a more advanced one, a nicer one, really. So Who wants to volunteer? If not, I'm gonna pick on someone. Any volunteers? Anybody going once, going twice?
Maybe me.
All right, Violeta, yeah, you've been quiet today. Let's go ahead, share.
Okay, let me see.
The next one is gonna be a little bit more interesting. I don't know if we can do it in 15 minutes, but we can try. Okay,
you see
so
it?
there, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let me annotate here, do another one, another form, right click, say add, call it remote add. Remote add all together. I think it's gonna complain if you, and then uppercase the A, or yeah, underscore, however you want. Yep. And then
Like
D.
this? Okay.
Yeah, an extra D there at the end, like addition.
Okay.
Yep, perfect. And then hit OK. All right, Violeta. So you're tasked with adding, excuse me, adding 2 text boxes. So I'm gonna draw it for you before you do anything else. You're gonna do that. You're gonna say first number and then second number. And you're gonna have a button here that says add. And you're gonna have a result here. And then another text box. Okay, so text box, label, text box, label, text box, label, text box, a button add. Go ahead, please. Start doing that.
Okay. So the text box. This one. Should I make all the textbooks first?
Yeah, however you want.
Okay. Okay.
Yep, let me clear it out for you.
Yeah, okay.
Down here, the text box.
Okay.
And then the button was up here.
Okay.
Okay, and then you need
And
you need to give yourself room, so you can multi-select these and then drag them to the right. So we can type in. Yeah.
how
So
can I multi-select?
you can drag, and it should take all of them. But like no, so like click here and then start dragging.
Okay. Like here.
And then drag, drag, drag. There you go, all the way down. There you go. It's sort of doing it.
Okay.
And then move them to the right, so we get more space here. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. And
this
then the
one.
last one. By the way, you have all these little things to help you move and align stuff.
Okay. And the bottom.
If you, yeah, the button over there. So then
Okay.
do 2 more labels, right? So label, label, label. Click in and then click again. Don't try dragging them because it just puts the, there you go. Yep. Okay, so now change the text properties of each of these, right? First number, second number, result.
That was text, right?
So make it first number.
Okay.
And second number. And then result.
Result. Okay.
And then call this guy add.
Okay.
Okay, and then yeah, let's do the IDs for each of these. So button btn add, and then each of the text box you should name them as well.
Okay.
Text box would be txt, and then first num. Mhm. Then we can do some additional properties, right? Because
Mhm.
technically we want them to be numbers. So we can, if we have time, we can do that. Okay, so
Okay.
now we need to add those two numbers and then display the result here. Okay, so
Okay.
we need an event for the add.
Okay.
So look up the events.
Let me see. I'm gonna use more space.
And remember what I said, like all of this should be in panels and relative layouts, but we don't have the time, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, because
Here, events, right? Like,
Mhm. And then the on click you passed it.
and click. Okay.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so give yourself some space here. Do like a new line. And now start typing in, right? So we're gonna declare 3 variables. So do var first num, and then naming convention should be like if you're expecting a number, start it with an n. So
Okay.
yeah, so lowercase n, erase the equal to.
Okay.
Yeah, lowercase n. And then num1, so uppercase another n, because it's a
Okay.
number, right?
Okay.
Num1.
Okay.
And then comma n num2, or whatever you want to call them, right?
Mhm.
And then n result, something like that.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, so semicolon there. Now new line. Okay, so we just declared them, right? So now we need to grab whatever you have in the text box for each of these. So this would be text box 1, this would be text box 2. So start
Okay.
doing n num1 equal to
Oh,
what we have in that text box, right?
okay. It is in.
Did it freeze on us?
Yeah.
Okay, give it a second.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Okay. Now one.
Let me clear my, my little drawing.
Screen.
Okay, so now we need to find that text box. So start typing txt. No,
Okay.
you're good. Leave what you
Okay,
had.
okay.
Num1 equals, and then start
X.
typing txt, and then hit Control space on the keyboard.
Control space. Okay.
Okay, now go to controls, because we know it's a control.
Double
Click on
click.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, let me do it because I
Okay.
can't even. I think I just do it so like. I got back. So it should come up. TXT. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not a control. It's a variable. So
Okay.
TXT control space, and then
Table.
variables. Yep. Double click on that or hit enter on that. There you go. Okay. So now you see all the variables we have, right? So we're gonna look for first num.
First
Yep.
num.
Hit enter there.
Okay.
And then hit dot again. And now, so now you're in the text box. This is the ID of the text box, and then these are the methods and properties. So let's scroll through them, get familiar with them a little bit, right? But bottom line, we need whatever has been entered as text. Okay, so look for something that makes the most sense. Keep going. So go up a little bit, right? Look at this. There's a text property there.
Text. Okay.
Yep. So control.text, okay?
Okay.
Semicolon on that. And then new line.
Okay.
Do the same for this one. And you can start typing and then it gets
Text.
you to the, there you go. Yep. And then hit enter.
Okay.
or tab enter, I forget. Yeah, and then, okay. So now we're gonna say end result equals, you know, n plus this,
Okay.
and num1 plus n num2.
Okay.
And then semicolon. And now we need to, the same way we set dot text over here, for the result, we need to say assign this value. Okay, so
Okay.
do the assignment to this variable here.
In another line.
Yeah, exactly. So let's bring up the same way we're doing here.
Okay.
Let's bring up the result text. So you already have the end result, right? So now we
Okay,
need, yeah, so now we need the text box. So bring up the
Uh,
text box.
after
Yeah, new
each
line here.
one. Okay, so new line.
And then let's bring up the text box, the result
Okay.
text box. So you can do txt, control space, if you forget the variable name, right? Result.
Okay.
Yep. And then dot. And then we're going to put the text. TX, yeah, this one.
Okay.
Equal to. And then this.
Okay.
Now, can no. So this is a variable.
Okay.
So yeah, you just want to assign the
Okay.
variable, right? So can anybody see an issue with this before she runs it? Save.
Okay.
We can run it, Violeta. Let's run it. Let's see what it looks like. But as she runs it, I want to know if anybody can see like a potential issue or what's going on here with what we just did. Anybody? Well, let's see what happens. So we have a lot of issues, right?
Okay.
With what we just wrote, but it's a good like first attempt, right, at a program. And then if you start testing it, you're gonna run into a ton of issues. All right, Violeta, so hit add without anything. Let's see what happens. Okay, nothing, but it doesn't crash, so that's good. Start putting in like some values here, 1 and 2 maybe, and then 2 over here. Yep, and then hit add. Anybody?
So because
I
you
went to
grabbed them,
school, right? 1 plus 2 is. Tell me.
is it because you grabbed them as text, so it's just putting them together?
Yeah, exactly. So it's plus when you do strings, it's gonna concatenate stuff. So Violeta, your program, you can actually put like ABC. Yeah, put like ABC and then hit add. So it's adding technically, but we want to make it so that it's adding numbers, right? And not doing this concat. So yeah, Deji, that's exactly it, right? Because of strings. So let's go back to your program, and we have to drop because I stole 30 minutes. Let's make some changes here, Violeta. So change number 1, go to the form itself. Okay, and then click on the text box. And then let's look for some properties. We know we expect numbers in there, right? So go down, slowly, please. Validating type, go up. Here, if you click inside of that, make it an int 16. Okay, that's a number. Do the same for all of these. And this is going to prevent one of the issues.
Okay.
But I think the adding will still be wrong. Okay, so let's just run it like this, right? So we just changed the properties. We didn't handle it with our code. We handled it with STARLIMS properties. And then do the same thing. Start with 1 and 2. See what the results are there.
Didn't run. Well, it's running. Okay.
Okay, and then hit add. Okay, we still
Okay.
so we still have an issue, right? But try to put like ABC like we did before. Yeah, okay. So you see it's preventing you even from clicking add, right? If you try to click somewhere else, it doesn't let you. It's stuck, right? So you have to, yeah, you can hit escape. And then, yeah, okay, so that's one issue. That's better. At least you can type in ABC and try to add ABC. But we need to fix why we're adding as strings, right? So go back to your program. And let's go here to the code behind. Okay, so these values here, we need to convert them to integers. Okay, so this is where I would go to Google and say JavaScript convert string to integer. If you don't know, right? You Google it. Let's not do that because this is pretty basic stuff, right? So we're gonna do int. It's 16 to be consistent with the, or it does just do 32. It doesn't matter. No. Leave. So leave what you had.
Okay.
Yeah. So in front of it, start typing in with a capital I. Sorry, capital I. 32. Let's just do 32. It makes it gives it more length. And then dot. And then P. Look for P. Let's parse. Yep. And then open that or click on that. And then open up parentheses and put your, yep, and then put it at the end as well.
Okay.
Do the same for this one. And then that's it. So I have another question here. Yep, open the parentheses. Do we need to do it for this one?
No,
Anybody? Why?
because we have already done it.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're guaranteed, right, to have a number here
Okay.
because we're converting them. However, what happens if we didn't have that property and they give an A in here and then it tries to parse? This would crash. So to clean this up in the final version of this, it would be try. So start,
Yeah.
give yourself a new line over here right after the declarations. Yep. Start typing in try. Okay, a new line. And then open a curly parentheses on the keyboard, the curly, no, the other one. Yep.
This one. Okay.
Slide all of this inside of the curlies.
Making more space. Okay. Okay.
Okay, and then indent this so the code looks nice.
Okay.
You can multi-select and hit tab, by the way.
Okay.
But that's fine. Okay, and then it's a catch over here.
Yeah.
Right after this curly, just type catch.
Catch. Like this or okay.
Yeah, just make it a new line and.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I believe it's open parentheses, and then hold on, let me take control here. So we are over time, and I don't want to keep you guys that long. Let me just finish it off, Violeta. But yeah, nice job. That was pretty much not everything I wanted to show, but
Okay.
we got there at the end. Where the hell is the take control? Sorry. Close this. There we go. Request remote control request. Okay, because it's hard to like dictate everything, right? So let's just do. So we put catch E, and then whoops, and then we can go back to that dialogues, that message box. Whoops. All right, so hopefully that works. Hopefully we get a 12. I mean, not 12. Whatever our values are. Oh, I need to refresh. And that's it for, we can continue on Friday from this example, and then you guys can try the other examples on your own. But this one, we're gonna enhance it a little bit so that the adding is not done on the client. And we do it on the, yay, right? And then I don't know if we can mess this up to get that exception. It won't let us. But if we remove the property, very last thing, I promise. If we remove this and make it a string, let's say you forgot about this, and you try to add now junk, you have it with a nice message to call Violeta. So I don't know where, if you guys were watching or doing it on your own, like, I don't know, right, how you guys are doing it, but over here, sorry. So this should, what am I doing?
Brunel?
Add exception occur, call Violeta, right? So we cannot add, junk like this. So this is valid. This is a valid program, I think, right? I would be happy with this. I would do the layouts, make the button nice and stuff, but that's all cosmetic stuff. Yes, Jose.
Yeah. I don't know if it's normal, but the tools button for me, the toolbox, it disappeared
Okay, I think we can get it back.
in view.
Yeah, try view toolbox. Here it is.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You got it back. All right, guys. We're like way over.
Ronald,
Yes.
I have
Tell me.
a quick question. Sorry.
No,
Is
you're
there a
good.
difference from writing text to looking it up like Violeta did?
No, it's exactly the same. Just be careful with
Okay.
your names, right? I tend to forget what I call my variables, so I use the IntelliSense. Once you get more practice, you start typing and then control space, and then you use the keyboard shortcut, find it, hit tab, keep typing. You'll find what works for you, right? But it takes practice, right? Like today was nice. I think you guys got like good content, but I mean, yeah, it's not enough, right? So yeah, and then you need to practice on top of that. So. But yeah, we'll continue on Friday with some more the back end stuff, right? So we've only spent a little bit of time here, but we have server scripts, data sources. So that's it.
Thank you, Ronald.
Yeah. Let me stop the recording.
Thank you.
I don't know how to stop the recording. Stop recording.